Hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad you could join us today. We've got Guy Giles from Mutual Mortgage coming on the show in just a little bit. He'll talk to us about the interest rate changes, what's going on in the lending world, and what it's like to buy a house in Southern Oregon. So we welcome Guy Giles back. So glad we could have him. In the meantime, let's talk briefly about the local statistics. We've got year-over-year sales in Clth County this week up 31%. We haven't seen that in forever. The average single family residential home in Clth County will cost you now $303,263. Clth County number of sold homes year over year this week are up 35%. Another good number. We had 19 residential homes closed in Clth County this week. The listings in Clth County are up year over year 7%. There are 248 active listings in Clth County this week. Congratulations, Clth County. That's all great news. Josephine County prices were down this week year over year, 13%. The average single-family residential home in Josephine County now costing $445,500. The number of homes sold in the residential market in Josephine County this week were down 36%. There were only 12 residential homes closed in Josephine County this week. The number of listings in Josephine County year over year were only down 3% this week. There were 349 residential homes on the market this week in Josephine County. Jackson County prices are up 17% year over year. Congratulations. The average single family residential home in Jackson County this week costing $552,729. The number of residential homes sold in Jackson County were up 11%. Another big congratulations. There were 50 residential homes closed in Jackson County this week. The number of listings year over year in Jackson County were down this week 10%. There were 672 residential homes on the market in Jackson County this week. So we're starting to see some good news. We're going to bring Guy Giles in and talk to us about what's going on with interest rates and mortgages and the like. He will be also bringing us up to speed on some of what's going on with the local buyers and some of their experiences. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. We're brought to you by John L. Scott, Ashland, Medford, Guy Giles Mutual Mortgage, and our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show and happy Thanksgiving weekend. Guy Giles is with us today from Mutual Mortgage. He is our in-house lender and a sponsor of the show. So glad to have you back, Guy.
Hey, I'm glad to be here at the end of a kind of a crazy year, but there's still a lot to be thankful for. So anyway, just kind of muddling through right now.
So we're still having a lot of volatility. And right before we went on the show, you were mentioning that you've got some concerns about people's credit and that we should talk about that on the show today.
Yeah, I think that well, I don't think literally credit card debt is kind of at an all-time high. I don't want to go negative on all this because there's definitely some, positive things out there, but I think just kind of educating people on being careful, going into this Christmas season, racking up a bunch of credit card debt that takes forever to kind of pay off. So I just thought I'd go into a few different things that affect your credit score so that, people can just kind of make a wise decision on how you're going to deal with, this season coming up, because it's super easy to spend a whole lot of money. And if you're trying to prepare yourself to buy a house, you definitely do not want to tank your credit score. One of the concerns that I've had is as people are racking up credit card debt, you might have some of these lending institutions, once you get over a 50% utilization, meaning you have $10,000 that you could borrow on a credit card. Once you start getting over 50% or $5,000 borrowed, they might start reducing your credit limits. And we're seeing that a little bit right now. It's not what I'm directly involved in, but I have heard of them doing that.
Oh,
If
wow.
Yeah, so I mean, it could be something that you just anticipated temporarily to have it like that. But if they lower your credit availability down to $8,000 because they're getting worried that you're starting to rack up a lot of credit card debt, now all of a sudden you have less available credit, and you really want to leave your utilization at about 30% or under.
Wow. I don't think people know that.
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily common knowledge, and that's the reason that I really am trying to caution people about not getting into, too much debt when it comes to that. So, it hurts your credit score if you're over, about a third utilization. So, say in that situation that I talked about a minute ago, you're at 50% because you borrowed 5,000 on a $10,000, one. Now they lower you to $8,000 credit limit. So that even makes it higher, and you didn't even actually borrow any more money. So I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody, but it's something to definitely be aware of. And it's just a strategy that lending institutions use to make sure that they don't get over leveraged with people, because
Well, but they're being preventative. That's the part that's so interesting, don't you think? And maybe this is a side effect of the digital predictive analysis and all the big data thing, that they're watching people's credit card balances. And even though you're not at your limit, they're getting nervous and they're jumping in and kind of lessening their risk. Is that kind of what you're saying?
yeah, and you're absolutely right, especially with a lot of the new AI coming out. I'm sure these things can run models, just, and then all of a sudden you have your risk
I'll
factor
bet that's what they're doing.
they're getting every day. And, I've actually seen a few different people, use strategies to try to get out of it. And I've had people that have come to me recently and done refinances because there's something called your blended rate. And I'm not trying to talk everybody into doing a cash out refinance so that I can do a home loan, but I've actually had it help a gal last week that came in, and she'd had some things that she had to take care of. She had some credit card racked up, kind of a high car payment, and she's been in her house for a long time. She ended up rolling everything together, saving about $580 a month,
Oh
which,
my God, that's huge.
the big thing is I don't want to discount the fact that you have just turned, 15, 20-year debt into 30-year debt. So what the strategy that we're going to go with her is that she's going to take the vast majority of her savings and she's going to apply that towards her principal every month. And she's actually going to end up with her house paid off sooner than it would have been, and have all this taken care of and a few $100s left over in her pocket. So instead of $600 in her pocket, now, she maybe pocket 200, and with the scenario that I gave her, put 400 towards her principal every month. She'll actually be paying a lot less per month. It's going to clear up her credit right away, and she's younger. And we had a big, long talk, because I'm an old dude now, about, hey, let's not rack these things back up at all.
Good for you.
Use that $200 a month to build up an emergency fund so you don't have to get in that position. But it really has helped some people to do a refinance and cash that out. Another thing is I've had people come to me that have bought a few years ago, and they have 20-30% equity in their house, and they want to put that down on their house, but they're worried because they're getting out of a 4.5% rate and going, to a 7.5% rate. But by the time you if you walk down and you give us 30% or 20%, you still have all those bills. So maybe come in with a little bit less down, 10-15%, instead of that. Pay off your consumer debt when you sell your house. And mortgage insurance, I mean, I saw it as low as $22 for somebody last week that that exact same thing. We had paid off some of their debt, and the net to them isn't their house payment going up. It's actually going down, because we've ended up paying off cars. We've ended up paying off, some of their consumer debt. And the net to them, they're scared to death. Hey, I'm going to go buy this new house. We need it because our family's growing, but we don't want our payment to go up. So a lot of people are on the fence right now. So I'm having these different conversations with them about, yeah, ideally 20% down is great. 50% down is great. But if you can just at the end of the month, actually buy the house that you want and have money left over because you don't have all these other weird little debts out there, it's making a lot of sense for people.
Yeah. Wow. That's very interesting. It's like a giant math problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 And you really need a lender to run the numbers for you because there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And I've actually had a bunch of times where people have come back to me and an agent has said, hey, can you go talk to Guy for a second opinion? Because they've talked to an online lender that they're just plugging things in. And every now and then they'll catch some things like that. But for the most part, they're just data entry, put it in there, hope the thing works out, move on to the next lead that came in. But being somebody that's sitting here locally that has to, look at you eye to eye at Fred Meyer, it's a way better feeling if you've actually helped somebody out.
Well, and I think having a local human lender can give you more choices and you're more involved in your own decision about the kind of loan that you're going into and why. And it's super exciting that people can use this opportunity to pay off some of their debts. Is that something that they get a choice about? Are there times when the lender just says, hey, we can't do it unless you pay this, and this off?
That's definitely happened in the past as far as that goes, but I'm thinking of it more like a strategy right now because people are still a little bit scared to buy a house. They've done really good on the one they had. Their payment's nice and low. But like I said, people let these other debts creep in, and it's just good to look at the whole picture, have a conversation. When somebody calls me up and just says, hey, what's your rate? It's so much deeper than that. I'm not trying to sell you something by having you come in and sit down and talk to me for a little bit, but I just really want to learn your overall picture so we can come up with a plan, more of a mortgage planner than just some guy, doing a
Oh,
loan.
that's a good way of thinking of it. Mortgage planning.
Yeah. I mean, I think, honestly, I think my job starts when your loan closes, not necessarily doing your loan, because that's going to happen either way. But I just really want to talk to you about your future. Do you want to turn this one into an investment property in a couple of years? What are your long-term goals? How long are you going to be here? What's your financial thing? I mean, yes, you're staying at home right now while your wife's working, but once those kids are a little bit older, are you going back to work and things are going to change? And just having those conversations and looking ahead, and nobody knows for sure what's going to happen, but it's definitely helped. I had a girl I closed a little over 2 years ago coming to me for an investment property this last week. And actually, I need to work on her loan today because it just came in last night, but we've been talking about it a little bit. And I remember her being so excited just to get into her first house. And now she's going to be, she's going to have an investment property of her own at 26 years old.
That's
So
amazing. Yay. Would love those stories.
it's really fun to be able to do this job, but just taking the time to actually do a little bit of planning, having somebody that can go deep into your credit report and take the time to look at things. And anyway, that's what we're pretty good at over here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wonderful to hear, especially that our youngers are getting into investing. I was really worried about the future of our younger generations. When you and I came up, we always knew we would own a house, right? That was just, we never had any doubt. But lately with the economy and the interest rates and just the uncertainty in the world, even some of the youngers are starting to wonder if they're going to be in a position for home ownership. And that's a really sad thought to have.
Yeah, I've definitely had difficult conversations with people. You got two young people working that aren't making a ton of money, haven't been able to save money.
Because everything's so expensive.
It's true. I mean, if you're literally going, not going, laterally or, selling a house and have that down payment, But I think that's another thing that's just kind of been encouraging them to do it is just taking the time to look at where your rent is going to be 10 years from now if you don't buy. It's going to go up at what's the average? 7% per year. I mean, as an actual, historical figure. That doesn't take that long for that to catch up to where your rent is, even if it's low right now. So, you couple that with the wealth that you're able to build, owning a house, and I don't want them to go down and buy too soon, but I've sat down with people and had them, kind of worked with them for 2 years, and then finally, they've done everything that I've said. I get the phone call, and then I'm able to call that agent back and say, look, you remember these guys that you sent to me, that many years ago, and then we get them in contract, and they're homeowners. And now it's a couple of years later, and I'm making those phone calls, talking about how much equity that you have in your house, not trying to get them to sell it or buy something else, but definitely they're fun calls, almost as fun as the closing, just to say, you know what, it was scary, but it worked out.
Yeah, that is so exciting. We love those stories. We're talking to Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage, one of our sponsors. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more updates from Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage. Don't go away. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. We have a repeat of this show tomorrow on this station, KCMX. FM 99, but we also want to announce that we are moving to 1300 AM station called the ACE, and we'll be starting that next week. We want to say thank you to KCMX. It's been a great home for us, and we're looking forward to some new adventures on the ACE 1300 AM, and we'll be starting that next week. And Guy Giles will be going with us, right?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. So just to wrap up some of what you were talking about before the break, the younger people that buckle down and sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice to save up for a house. Heck, it's a sacrifice just to, deal with all of the inflation right now. I know some people, their food bill, their gas bill, people who drive for a living, it's been real hard. But if they just buckle down and make those sacrifices, they can be in a position of wealth building through real estate.
And a lot of times it's as simple as, I mean, it's easy because I've done that for most of my life. I mean, it's easy to, if you make a ton of money or a little bit of money, you figure out a way to spend it.
Yeah.
Just no matter what. But without knowing, where all those dollars are going, it is a lot scarier, because but if you write out a good budget and stick to it, there's no reason, why most people can't save money. I think a lot of us don't even realize all of the weird things that we spend money on. One coffee a morning adds up at the end of the year. I don't buy them or drink coffee, so I don't really know. Figure $3 a year or $3 a day. I don't know, $4 a day. You multiply that by 365 days. Worst case,
that's $1,460 if you did it every single day. I just did it.
Right on. And I'm supposed to be the math guy. Thanks a lot.
Well, I just have the calculator in my hand.
No, little things like that add up. But just knowing where your money's going makes the decisions a whole lot easier when it comes to whether or not you're ready to buy a house. And if you can just put that budget, another thing that I really do with these young home buyers is, if they're paying $1,700 a month right now for rent, and their payment for their house is going to be $2,600, pay the difference to yourself, for the 2 months while you're looking for a house, and see how comfortable that is. And
that is a great idea.
Yeah. And at the end of the month, I mean, you might be just like, hey, that was easy, I can go up a little bit, or that was kind of tough, maybe I don't. So it's actually helped a lot of people realize, exactly, where they are financially, other than to get to the end of the month and you just hope it works out.
Well, and then not only are you set up ahead of time, does that make a difference to the lender? Like if you tell it can, well, the lender sees your finances. So like, do they care that you're saving $2,000 a month? That's a lot of money.
It I'm sure on some level we have what's called loan prospector and desktop underwriter. That's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's engines that run these things. And in the background, if they see that money is starting to be saved or your utilization on credit cards isn't going up or it's maybe going down, that's got to help drive, though these automatic engines that we run. What we want to do, hopefully, is we plug in all of your information and it spits out, hey, this looks okay. After you do this job for a little while, you can usually tell before you ever run that whether or not you have a deal. But I don't see any reason in the world that those factors are not, I don't even know enough about computers, algorithms, or, it doesn't fit into the whole picture as far as that. I mean, but at the end of the day, we're just looking at, what your debt to income ratio is. But I think if somebody's really on the fence right now, I think that it would default to a few of those things. And that might be the difference in saying the computer saying yes or the computer saying no. So a demonstration to save money is absolutely a plus when it comes to us.
Well, and in the other segment, we were talking about how the credit card companies in this kind of creepy way they're watching our spending habits. And then if they get nervous, they're shutting it off or closing. What were you saying? They were kind of limiting, they weren't letting you go to your limit. It's nice to hear that regular deposit out of your paycheck is also getting some credit, because you should get, if you're going to get dinged for spending too much money, then it's nice to hear that you're going to get some points for already saving that payment, because it must make the lender feel better that you can already prove that you can make the payment.
No, absolutely. And the going back to the credit thing, I actually got a letter in the mail because I hadn't used this credit card in years. And they told me, well, if you decide you want to keep this credit card open, use it in the next 30 days. And I ended up jumping on and with 2 credit cards, I bought something just to keep available credit. And anyway, I paid them off. So I still don't know why, if they're making any money on me at all. But it literally, I got a thing in the mail saying, if you don't use the credit card, we're gonna close them down. And
so that's interesting. How worried do you think some of the big creditors and finance companies are about the economy? Because, you were talking about jobs kind of still being strong, I think, during the break.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I don't think the job market's as strong as they're saying. I really don't, because they keep fooling with the numbers. I think 80,000 jobs that they got one month were teachers going back to work not that long ago.
Okay.
Or they count part-time jobs as full-time jobs. And unfortunately, politics gets in the middle of this stuff and it ends up hurting everybody. But really, I mean, the Fed, their goal of 2% inflation is what they're trying to shoot for. And there's no way to go for something like that without just kind of overshooting, slowing down the economy. I mean, they're at a point right now where I cannot imagine that they will raise rates again. They're leaving it on the table, but I think that the talk has shifted more towards them lowering it down, first quarter, middle of next year. I think it happens probably around the first quarter. I can't say that for sure because I was wrong last year. I thought everything would.
Well, we all were.
But in housing, the funny part is year over year, we're still going to be up for houses.
Isn't that something? I was watching some of the numbers come out, and they're still estimates, but they're looking at 2023 as a little bit better than break even, possibly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to wind up a few percent up, unless just right at the end here, because I am starting to see some reductions. But I just think that everybody kept going up. So it's not that things really went down from the actual trend, but everybody just kept putting their houses on the market for way more than they probably should have been, just assuming that they would get it. So a lot of the reductions, and you could probably speak to that better than me, but it feels to me like a lot of the reductions were just reductions to get it to where it should have been, that they started out too high. And if we look at what the actual houses are selling for, and I haven't, to be fair, I haven't looked in over a month, but it was still trending to where, you're going to end up being higher than we were last year.
Yeah. It's amazing because we thought for sure we were going to be lower.
Well, and they can't build enough houses right now, and they're not building enough houses to keep up with, with the need. So I don't see, especially around here, things going down.
Well, and even the new construction in some neighborhoods, they're in the mid fours, and some of those builders are doing price reductions, and that doesn't happen very often. I don't know that people understand builders don't do price changes because it affects the whole subdivision. They'd rather throw in a fence or I don't know, sprinklers in the backyard or something, but they don't normally like doing price changes. So when we see that happening, it's really kind of an eye opener.
Yeah. I mean, definitely we got stalled with as high as rates have gotten. There's no doubt about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen them giving concessions, giving different things. And but the big thing that just keeps coming back to me is we have to be careful of that too, because right now when sellers, when builders are giving away incentives for you to buy their house, that's a whole lot different than a year and a half ago when you were bidding $30,000 over, just praying to God that you'd actually even get the house. So if you're waiting for rates to come down, you're probably going to end up waiting a little bit too long, because it's a big swing between I'm going to pay $30,000 more for this house and I might get $10,000 paid to me to buy the house. That's $45,000 swing, and to have a higher rate for a little while is not the end of the world. At least you're in your house. We're not going to charge, as long as you've made 6 months payments, we're not going to be charging you to refinance when the rates go down. So if you get in right now, you pay a few $100s more per year or per month for 4, 5, 6 months, 7 months. It's still a whole lot cheaper because you had all your closing costs paid for and you didn't pay more for the house than it was actually selling for. So I still think it's a really good time to just get in and buy. Just get in the game if you're not.
See, I agree too, but it's so volatile out there, and there's so much tragedy in the news, and so much uncertainty. I really understand why people are hesitant. I get it, but the prices are a little bit soggy right now, a little down. And I just see that they're going to pop back up, but we don't know that they're going to go up very high because you're dealing with people's wages, right? People have a monthly mortgage check normally to write, and there's only so high they can go. We only have about a minute left, but maybe you could speak to that prediction. We're all about predictions here this time of year, right?
Well, I think rates are going to go down next year. That said, I absolutely understand what you mean with just the uncertainty in the world right now. That's why just having a really good sit down conversation, going over the budget, finding out, can you afford the house or can you not afford the house? Or how do we get you in a position later to be able to afford a house? Or maybe your family is getting older and within 5 years, your mom and dad are going to be living with you, or your mom. So you think about pulling your money together. We should
talk about that. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
going to
there's
have to
so
take
many.
a quick break. We're thankfully brought to you by John L. Scott, Ashland and Medford, Giles Mutual Mortgage, and our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. This weekend of giving thanks, we appreciate you all. And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Don't go away. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. We're going to be moving to a new station starting next week. We'll be on 1300 AM. We're going to be on the station called the ACE, and we're super excited. We're very grateful to KCMX. We've had a good run here, and we're very thankful for them. But you look for us next week on 1300 AM, the ACE. We're also thankful to our sponsors, John L. Scott, Ashland and Medford, Guy Giles Mutual Mortgage, and the local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. So, Guy, it's been a year. Thank you for all of your contribution. What do you think is going to happen in Southern Oregon with the housing market? And do you think that more people will be buying houses next year?
I do. I mean, nobody wants to die in California. Let's just face it. And people are going to keep on coming. I think rates are going to come down. I'll cry in front of all of you guys if we're sitting here in the middle of next year.
How much do you think they'll come
This
down?
time, probably into the mid low sixes next year.
Okay.
Which is a huge help as far as from where we've been. I mean, I maybe we're just a hair under 7, but I'm already locking people in there right now anyway.
Well, and that's down from what it was actually.
Absolutely. We've had a couple of really, really good weeks, a little bit of a setback on Wednesday when the unemployment numbers came out. But other than that, we're finally sustaining a trend of rates going down, and it'll be a little bumpy. You'll have something that'll throw it off for a few days, but I think we really have started, to turn that corner to getting towards lower rates. The Fed, they have to walk a fine line, so they're not committing to anything either way. But the whole narrative has shifted from how much are we going to raise it? How many more times are we going to raise it to, do we have to raise it, and when can we start lowering it? And just to say what I always say, it's not a direct connection between, what the Fed does and what our mortgages sell for, but they're all signs of inflation. And I don't think anybody can dispute that it has cooled a lot over the last few months. So,
well, I sure hope that we have more people put their home on the market. Gosh, it seems like we're bouncing around some weeks, a good 50% short of what we need just to have a normal year. And then there was some national housing market announcement this week that we're at a 13-year low of home sales, 13-year loan, 13-year low. Not a 13-year loan, although Guy probably has a 13-year loan.
Gosh, yeah. No, it's definitely been a little bit of a time to rest and regroup. It hasn't been crazy like it's been all for a decade now. And maybe my hair will stop falling out like it has been. But you know what? It's a great business to be in. It's a good thing to own a home. I've never, in the long run looked, and I've had houses through that 13 years ago, through the biggest crash since the Depression. And the house is worth way more than it was before that happened. And, it's going to be a good investment if you can swing it. But as far as what's going to happen around here, I think people will realize, especially as rates start to come down, that, you need to be where you need to be. So if you're going to have to sell in California and you eventually want to get out of the state, at some point you're just going to have to pull the trigger. If you have to downsize, or you're looking for a bigger house because your family is growing, that's what's important. So, just talk to us about strategies on how to do that. We've had people that are like, well, if I sell my house, I'm going to get this higher mortgage payment and it's going to be this way. It's like, well, yeah, but what if you rent your house out? And I know that doesn't help the inventory thing, but now you're making $400 or $500 a month on that, and that offset your new purchase over here that you're right. Yeah, you're paying $500 more a month for that, but your renter's now paying for it. And now you have $500,000 worth of houses.
Well, and you're helping the rental market, which, we should talk about that maybe on another episode, talk about investing and just how I think the rental market shortage is probably worse than the sales market. We'll have to run those numbers.
Yeah, and it feels like it's really specific to each circumstance too. So, as far as how much people are paying right now, what you could get into a new house for, but I don't see any problem with people, if you're looking to increase your wealth, to buy an investment property or rent yours out. And, there's strategies that people have used over years and don't sign up for a seminar. Don't get me wrong. Just call Alice, and, she's so well-versed with investment property. She'll help you. But, it's just a great way to, I don't know, just build wealth, I guess.
Yeah. And you are helping the housing shortage in Southern Oregon, which is a beautiful thing. And there's a lot of loan programs that are available for groups of people. We don't have too much more time, but just wanted to touch briefly on buying with your relatives or some other maybe investor friends, so that you can get into that investment property.
Yeah, we've had a lot of parents that have come along with either help with a down payment or being what we call a non-owner occupying co-borrower, where they can use their co-signer was kind of the old word for it, and they still kind of use that on the FHA loans. But Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have a really good program where, the parents can come in, or the kids can come in for that matter, and help the parents. But I think there's just a lot of people that are thinking ahead, and, a couple of years down the road, mom and dad are going to be living with us anyway. So
that's true for a lot of us.
And yeah, so anyway, like I said, everything's, specific to your own circumstances, but there are a lot of options other than I have to wait and save 20% down, and I have to, have it all fit into this bucket. There are a whole lot of different options for people. We actually even have, you're going to laugh at this, a stated loan. It's a brokered loan for owner occupied houses now. And I have not ran one yet. You're not going to get the regular rate on it because it's going to be what they call a portfolio program. It's not a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac thing, so it's not going to crash the whole world. But we have a couple of brokers that are wanting to do that now. And
well, maybe next time when you come on the show, we can talk about that, because that's a head scratcher.
New to you, huh? I don't know of anybody else that has it. And like I said, I want to caution you, if you think you're going to come in and get a 7% rate on that, it's not going to happen. But that said, if it's a difference in owning and not owning, it might be right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point of this conversation. It's the point of the show, is that there's always a way to figure it out. And so you want to get in touch with Guy Giles. You want to give your number real quick before we sign off?
Yeah. Actually, my cell phone number is 541-944-6987, or you can just look up Guy Giles on the internet also.
Well, that's great. Well, and thank you for the great run on KCMX, Guy. We really appreciate you. We're going to be repeating this show tomorrow at 6 p.m. on KCMX, and we'll be on the ACE 1300 AM next week. Have a beautiful weekend.